Yes, a big hello and welcome to the Jock and Journo podcast. It is Jay Clark and Scotty Pendlebury here, and we are joined by, well, not only journalistic royalty, he's football royalty. Let's be honest, a man who has dominated the scene. Like, I think you've got a lot of trophies and awards, more to sink the ship. You might be out-trophied by this guy.
Happily.
Because he's done it at the top of the caper for 50 years. He was the chief footy writer at the Herald Sun and The Age, also the press boss at the AFL Awards for a while. He knows everyone in the game, and everyone he's met, I reckon, not only respects him, admires him, but loves him. It's the Godfather of AFL journalism. Mike Sheahan, how are you?
That sort of intro. Hello, Jay. Hi, Scotty.
Hello, mate.
And in fact, that's not true, Scotty. I don't mean to pull you up on questions of fact, but there's plenty of people that would say they don't love and admire me.
Is that right?
Well, Dakes was one for a long time.
Peter.
Yeah.
Did he?
Ooh.
Something must have happened. This is great. I never get to dig into Journo's life, but I'm fascinated by where we'll go today. And I still see Mike Friday mornings, every now and again, Albert Park, coffee shop.
Who with?
Well, I don't know. There's a little crew every
do.
week. From the distance I see there, it looks like Gubby Allen.
Correct.
Sauce every now and again.
Yeah.
Jeff Walsh.
Correct.
Scotty Clayton. Who else is there? It's
You're
a
going
really
well.
random. It's a
Your powers
really
of
random
observation are
crew.
good.
Grey-haired
Not just on the
scallywags.
ground.
Yeah.
Rocket Eid.
Rocket Eat, Scallywag.
Stephen Goff from the MCC.
What a crew.
And we have a couple of guest appearances. Dennis Gallimberti has turned up for the last couple.
Is that right? So who's got the biggest personality or ego out of that lot, do you think?
All of them, mate. It's a bob of the head in the finish.
Mate, there's so much to get to, and we are so privileged to have you here, Mike. But how do you, this is a nub of it for me, how do you negotiate every major conflict and every tricky story over 40 years or more in the AFL, yet come out with friends like that? Like, that is told to me to be the greatest art, the greatest skill in journalism, and I reckon you did it better than anyone else. Your network circle grew and grew and grew despite the challenges of the job. How did you do it?
Well, yeah, but and I appreciate that's flattering, Jay, but look, I don't have a good relationship with Mickey Malthouse and haven't had for a long time. It's a big queue, but I'm in it. Parko's another one that we're mates, or we're friendly now, but we weren't for a long time. So I've had plenty of clashes with and you know me well enough to know I'm quite opinionated. And,
Yes.
And probably, as Clarkson calls me, precious, so I can overreact a bit.
You're not on your own in that, the sensitive journo group.
That's
Actually, it's funny
in the
when
AFL world.
Well, I saw Clarko 6 weeks ago, I reckon.
Yeah.
He invited Jeff Slattery and I to go down and have a talk to him. He lives on the National,
Yeah.
the National Golf Club. And he said, would we call by and just have a chat? And this was, he hadn't been seen in public, hadn't been doing much. And I thought, this will be tense. I'm not sure what he wanted, but he just wanted to run up through. Anyway, so we opens the door. He says, "G'day, Slats. G'day, Precious." I thought, he's back.
Yeah, there you go.
So we had a couple of hours there talking to him then.
Did he feel well at that point? Were you
Yeah,
talking?
he turned the corner then.
Yeah.
I like Clarko. I've had blues with him too. But I like him. He's feisty and, you know what he's like. He's just, but you get what you see with him.
So this is it, Scott. This is the great thing with Mike Sheahan. He is giving Alastair Clarkson advice, aren't you? He's coming to you and saying, mate, things have been a bit testy. I've abused this poor journalist from Channel 9. What do I need to do? Is that enough?
No, it was broader than that. It was about where he was in the world because, I think he was in a dark place 3 months ago. And I know he's a friend of Jeff Slattery's and we had a good relationship and then there was a moment where it wasn't so good. I remember he came, I was on the couch and I'd been to lunch, which was, I broke my golden rule.
Oh.
Never go to lunch on the day that you're going to appear on television.
So you'd had a couple.
I had two couples I'd had. And I said, I'd heard a whisper from a very, very good source that Clarko would go to West Coast. This was when Simo got the job. And I just pushed it a bit further than I should have and sort of said that I was confident that he'd be coaching the West Coast the following year.
I remember this.
And then they won the flag, Hawthorn, and he came in on the following Monday. Geez, did he rip me? Which was fair enough. Pendles, this will surprise you, but I've got a few wrong over the journey.
Know that, Mike. You wrote me off, I think, when I was 27. It's funny, though, because it filters. I'm not a big football reader of newspapers and stuff like that. So you don't hear it, but it always gets back to you, like, dad or mum or whatever. Oh, you see Mike Sheahan said you're a B grader and whatever.
Did I say that?
Yeah, maybe you gave me a B+. Was it?
I would hope so.
I don't know.
I've heard you apologise 10 different times for that, Mike.
I mean, it always does get back, and it always cuts those around. Like, because when you're playing, like, there's opinions always about how you're going, and that's just the nature of the beast. So I don't take anything personal. I always like to rub Mike up whenever I see him and remind him, just so he doesn't forget. But it always does. It always comes back and filters back, and it affects, mum and dad with, oh, I can't believe this. And it's like, well, I'm playing this weekend. Does it really matter? Like, stuff like that. But
so you genuinely are saying to me, and I take this at face value, this is for confirmation, that players generally don't read the media?
I would say 50%, or now I would say 75% of players wouldn't read the Herald Sun, the Age. Everyone consumes on social media now. So they would see little snippets on Twitter or X, Instagram, but they wouldn't sit down and read an article these days.
How many check their stats?
Oh, now it would be 100% of guys. One of the first things. That's the thing I hate the most about football at the moment is we're so stats-based and everyone worries about their numbers, and we judge people at the end of a game. You almost don't even watch the game. They'll go, oh, he must have played well. He had 34.
Yeah.
We don't worry about impact anymore.
No, I agree with you about that.
Stuff.
And 10 minutes later, people like us who watch it have got no idea what the stats said. You won't believe this. They lost contested ball. They lost inside 50s, all that sort of stuff, and they won the game of footy.
Yeah, because the biggest stat in football that still matters the most is goal kicking.
The two things.
Good boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and did you?
It does.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And for a bloke who, and I'm probably your biggest fan, Scott, for a bloke who hasn't missed a target field kicking since about 1974, your set shot kicking, son,
I'm like Shaquille O'Neal with that. I make them when they count.
Oh, okay.
Well, I didn't think I think he's reliable in front of goal.
On
but
the
he's
run,
not super hit.
On the run.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the
I'd back
set
you in.
shot.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Now you explain. Let me ask you this question.
Go for it.
That's your concession, and I accept that, and I agree with it. The only flaw in the best player in the competition, in my view, Marcus Bonampelli, is his set shot kicking. Yet on the run, like
Beautiful.
you, yeah, superb.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because it's the little bloke in your head, isn't it?
No, I don't have like the little guy in my head when I'm set. I just find like when I'm on the run, you don't have time. Like, so I'm like, bang, you kick it flat and it just goes straight through. For some reason, when you're on that set shot, it's like a walk. It's such a different routine that you only do a few times, and you got to kick over hands and you kick higher. So for some reason, for me to try and always get the extra distance, not a big kick, I always lean back. Like, I've watched the tape more than anyone. But when I'm kicking like field kick or on the run, like my head's down, I stay down, I stay compact, I stay over it. Like Gary Ablett Jr. was someone that I used to watch all the time. Like so low, he'd always jump off his plant leg, and the momentum just takes it through. It's almost like I'm just putting it when I'm on the run. Just tap it, it'll go through. Set shot. I'm so confident.
For all the discussion about goal kicking,
Yes.
and it should be discussed, but that's the first time I've heard someone talk about the bloke's arms on the mark. And it just does change your trajectory, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You got to kick. So when you're having a field kick, think about how high the ball goes in the first 10 metres. Like, it's coming off your foot, it goes flat, and then it ends up at target. Set shot, your ball's got to be, say Mason Cox on the mark, 210.
Yeah.
It's got to be probably 3.5 metres high straight away.
It's a different kick.
So you're kicking up and forward straight away. It's a different type of kick. And it's one that I've definitely struggled with. And especially if I'm outside sort of 45, then I've got to try and turn the corner a little bit more. And it's harder. Try and turn it into, everyone's like, we'll just turn it into a kick on the run. So we'll get rid of the bloke on the mark, and I will.
Oh, very good. Hey, Mike, you once said to me that not writing a story is often more important than not writing. The stories you don't write is often more important than the ones that you do. And so for a long period of time, you kept a lot of secrets and waited and timing. So if someone, and I worked out front of your office for about, 5 years. And just picture this for a second. Mike would be in his office, which is football stuff everywhere. And like one after one, these are the people who would call you. And I hope you don't mind if I'm breaking any confidences here. I don't think I am. you'd be having Andrew Demetrio, or it'd be John Longmire, or it'd be Paul Roos. It was a constant cavalcade of the 30 most important people would call you one after the other, and you had their confidence and the hotline. I'd be sitting out the front waiting 3 days for a call from Orazio Fantasia in his second year.
But you were about 17 then.
Well, it was embarrassing, right? But do you want to tell the story about when you sat on a coach sacking for 6 months? Do you remember you told me a story when you got a whisper that a coach was going to be sacked, and they said, hold fire. And you waited.
Did I get the story? Did I end up writing it?
You did write the story. Do you remember the story?
No, tell me.
Wasn't it wasn't the Melbourne coaches that you waited on for this long? For 6 months or not? Or can you remember that?
Well, no, I can't actually. Sorry, Jay.
That's all right.
The biggest story that I got out of Melbourne was when Peter Moore and Calvin Templeton were both sold at the end of a season, right? They were both captains of their club, Moore and Templeton, and both Brownlow medalists, and Melbourne bought both of them over the summer, and I wrote that story. And I sat on that for quite a while, and one of the reasons was I thought, this is impossible. This just couldn't happen. And then the Herald, remember the Afternoon Herald, finally ran it across the front page, and they were sold for $1 million.
Wow.
And we're talking early 80s here.
So how did that transfer period work back then? So when you say sold, so what? So Melbourne paid Collingwood for Peter Moore.
Yeah. And the Bulldogs. They both went there in the same off-season.
It's amazing.
And you imagine that now, like when you were captain of Collingwood and whoever was captain of the Bulldogs at the time.
But AFL still struggles with free agency.
True.
Yeah.
It's not free agency either. It should be called compensation agency.
Yeah. That coaching story that is most vivid in my mind was I rang Ron Joseph one morning and said, Ron, I believe that you're sacking Malcolm Blight today. And I knew Ronnie well, and he said, no, that's not right. I said, I've got it on good authority, Ronnie.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm telling you it's not right. 2 hours later, North Melbourne called a press conference to sack Malcolm Blight.
What was the feeling in your stomach?
You imagine, well, you know me well enough to know what the feeling was like. So I went to the press conference and just seething, which is, I suppose you almost have to say it's water under the bridge and get on with it. But I was filthy on that. But then they said, well, that's just serving your own interests. Our interests are the North Melbourne Football Club and yours are your newspaper. But I didn't like it when people blatantly lied. You know, I thought if they could...
So what's the alternate there? Because I'm Clubland. So I would say that's just them protecting their interests and not wanting to get out.
Yeah.
So what should Scotty do?
Yeah, what should they do? What do they get out of telling you that you're right?
No, they don't get anything, but it's a trust thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I feel that goes both ways because then there'll be another occasion where they might ask a favour and you might do the right thing by them. And that's what, over 30 years, you come out.
We just get drummed
with good outcomes.
Drummed into us from the start. And I'm not here nor there, but like just always protect the club at all costs. And I don't like when you have to pretty much lie or I don't know what you're talking about. Is there 2017 is Buck's under pressure and it's like clearly he's under pressure. Oh no, he's doing a great job and blah, blah, blah. It's like Jesus, like I'm going to board meetings and all stuff like and it's and then and you guys are all over it, but it's sort of fascinating. Is like
no, you can't win out of that, can you? Because if you say,
I feel like I'm just sitting there like a sitting duck.
Yeah, but I think if you ask if you put a proposition to someone in authority at that football club, I don't think they should lie to you.
Yeah. So had they said yes, you're right, then what happens from there, from your point of view?
Well, I would have written it that morning, and the story would have been out before the press conference.
Okay, and then they would have been unhappy.
But lots of stories come out that way.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen anyway.
No, I'm not saying I'm here nor there, but it's just funny from both sides of where it lies, the interest lies.
Yeah, and I know, and I think we do, Jay, the industry that we were in, I think we take the moral high ground in the situation that I just talked about, but we're not as careful. We don't care as much from the club perspective, if that makes sense.
No, but if a story's going to happen, then as long as you're fair and accurate, I think they're the only two things you can ask for, right? So, and your accuracy over 40, 50 years was extraordinary, and that's what builds your reputation, isn't it?
There was another one that was closer to you, I reckon, was Brendan Gale was, I forget where he was, he was Players Association, and he was either going to or coming from the Players Association, and I rang him, and he denied it, and it happened in the next 24 hours, and I got shitty about that.
Yeah.
And that's why. I mean, I own up to the Precious nickname.
Yeah.
I do take it personally and get wounded for a period. Brendan and I are good friends, but I don't know. And I think he said your line to me. Well, what am I going to say? He said, I've got my constituents to look after, footy club and wherever I'm going next. So I owe it to them more than I owe it to you.
That's a fair point. From my shoes, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
What was it like, Mick, back in the 70s, probably 80s, before media departments, before media bosses? A game would finish. Would you walk in the locker room, go up to Johnny Platten and say, Johnny, how about a chat? Or Gary Ablett saying, can you tell us how that? This is very different now. I've got to request an interview.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to wait days for it to be approved. How did it work back in the day? Player would play, and you'd go and chat to
Well,
the
you're
locker
exactly right. We would go into the rooms after the game and mix, mingle, and talk to whoever we wanted to. I don't think you had to ask anyone if you could.
You just asked the player.
You just talk to them. We had coach. Well, we've still got coaches' numbers, but the numbers of players. If you there was a story that involved you in those days, I would have just rung you up, said, Scotty, blah blah. This is the story. Is it right?
Is your leg broken?
Yeah. I like that idea. I said to you before, I struggle with how protected everyone is because everyone knows everything anyway.
Yes.
Like our footy industry is pretty incestuous. Like everyone knows everyone and stories there. And as you said, it's a matter of hours before people find out. But the club want to do it to protect their brand, the sponsors. They want to frame the messaging in the right way. But yeah, I love the fact that you could just walk in and sit down and chat with whoever.
I would have said to Jay and to Mark Robinson and to all the young blokes, the blokes who were young when I was there, you never ring anyone and ask them a question you don't know the answer to. So if I ring you, I know the answer to the question.
I know your leg's broken.
Just confirmation.
I just need a comment from you.
Yeah.
Was that what was your favourite era or time in your career? Because the footy changed, obviously, over a long period of time, and the media sort of departments and things changed. Do you think back on a time of your career, on a time in the game which you enjoyed the most?
Probably the 70s and the 80s because I was emerging. Even I was young once.
Yeah.
And just growing into it. And I mean, I love football, right? So I would meet these blokes who were my heroes and just mingle with them. And I did.
Talk footy.
Yeah, I did. And I loved doing that. Even now, I can see. There was an interesting story about Christian Petracca. I loved him from when he was a kid, right? A kid in terms of AFL, when he just arrived on the scene. So we're at, my daughter Kate was playing at Collingwood in the women's comp. And I was in the back of the car and Kate goes, there goes Christian Petracca. And I don't even know how I did this. I just wound the window down and said, hey, Christian. And he came over the car and I thought, what am I going to say to this kid? I'm 50 years older than him. But that's that sort of hero worship that I still have. I mean, I love how good these blokes are and mixing and talking footy with them. And I'm looking at you when I say that.
Notice that, not looking at Jay.
No, but the great players. I mean, Wayne Carey, he was the best player that I've ever seen. And I think in a way I deliberately didn't get close to Wayne because I wanted the Don Bradman up there just as the hero.
What do they famously say, don't meet your heroes?
Yes.
They say that.
Yeah. I met Manny Pacquiao once, boxer from the Philippines. He was unbelievable, better than I expected.
Yeah.
So that was sort of a myth now. Don't meet your heroes because he was my hero. And he was
Lethal was, I'm not saying he was a hero of mine because I was critical of the way he played in terms of how many people he killed. But
aggressiveness.
I wrote his first book at his request and got close to him then. But
You're
before
still great
that,
mates.
yeah, we are. Yeah, and I enjoy his company. He's come to a couple of the Friday coffees.
I think.
You need an invitation, mate. I'll get you.
Well, Nick Bartels. You still see Nick?
Yeah, the bloke who built your 10 houses.
No, he built your house.
He did, yeah. But I had to pay. I had to pay for mine.
Do you know I worked on your house?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was doing a bit of work experience with Nick. So your second story, I shot that in.
You're responsible for that.
Yeah, that's me. So any cracks there?
Matty Maguire did some work there too.
Yeah, absolutely. We all did. We all sort of practiced on your place.
They learned there was an apprenticeship going up on the top floor.
Apprenticeship program.
The amazing thing, one of the many amazing things about you, Mike, your Monday piece, that was legendary, wasn't it? So you would pick up the paper on a Monday morning and you would cover the Sunday games. Yeah, that one page sort of thing, separated into two bits. I would look at the back page and then I would go straight to that. What I loved about it, Mike, is how simply you wrote and how it always got to the nub of the big issue, whether it was Carlton's forward line or, I don't know, Carlton's back line or the coach circus or whatever. You're always able to get to the centre of every football story and to do it so swiftly, right? Short sentences, bang, straight into it. And it became religious reading for Melbourne's football community. You know, do you sit back, how do you reflect back on that and think, well, you were the big word on a Monday morning out of the weekend.
It's a bit like, suppose you ask Scotty about he's playing games of footy. I mean, that's just what we do. He plays, and I used to. But I did genuinely love the Monday page because it was pure footy.
Yeah,
it was about the implications of the weekend's results and, you know, who was playing well and who wasn't, and who might win the flag and all that jazz. You know, and it was pure footy, and that's always been my priority. I mean, Caroline,
what do you mean you don't like the soap opera?
I just always say this when I speak even with Caroline Wilson in the audience, and certainly about her. She's an excellent journo, in my view, but she is much more interested in what happens in the boardroom than inside the fence, and I'm the opposite. And that doesn't say one's right and one's not, because what happens in the boardroom has huge implications for the game. But I love the purity of the game of footy. Does that make sense?
Of course,
absolutely it does.
Yeah.
Have you ever been asked to do like a coach search, or you know, where they do like a coach committee or anything like that? I feel like with the wealth of knowledge that you've spoken about, passion for the game, how well you understand it, you would have a really good handle on what would make a successful club or coach. Have you ever sat on a committee or been approached to do that?
I've sat on Halls of Fame committees, selection committees for those clubs' Halls of Fame. But you've actually hit a nerve there. I mean, I sometimes think, I don't go looking for it, but I sometimes think I'm surprised that more people haven't sort of said, can we have a talk to you about A, B, C and D? And particularly about how to handle the media. I've never been asked once by a club to talk to their players about how to handle the media. And yet, Monash University, remember Julie Tulberg? She has me at least once and often twice a year to talk to her journalism students.
So what would you say to the players of the clubs about modern media or telling their story?
I'd echo what Scotty said before. I mean, if someone asks you a question, give them an answer. I mean, the Dacos boys are good at it.
They are good.
I remember hearing them on, I think it was SEN, and I rang Jake Connors, who's a mate of mine, and said, those kids are great.
Yeah.
They get a question, they answer it. They don't just sort of those cliches that that you get and just turn you off. I mean, sometimes on Friday nights or any night, if the player gives the typical response, well, I just move on.
Yep.
That'll do me.
Yeah,
Which happens.
I've found with my media now, I'll say to our media team sometimes, don't give me any brief because it's too boring for me. I want to be just challenged a little bit when I walk in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just 1 week at a time. I'm really looking forward to Thursday night.
Yeah.
Let me just see where it goes and let me just try to be caught off guard by something.
Yeah,
but
you want to be challenged.
You're a 35-year-old man who's negotiated 600 games.
Yeah,
I mean, surely they're entitled to have their faith in you.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised about how, and I don't think football clubs take much notice of the media people anyway, because some of the responses just amaze me.
Yes, and the disrespect.
If you brief it, you should be able to say to someone, not you, but say if Darcy Moore, if there's a controversy at Collingwood, and now that he's captain, they'll ask you about this. Now, you answer it the way you want, but be mindful of A, B, C, and D. That's all.
Yeah, which I'll shout out Nadine and Tash at our club. They're amazing at that now. Like they're just giving us the freedom within. They give us a framework.
Yep.
And then there's a few things like let's not touch on these points, but the rest of it, be you, be authentic. And the Dacos boys do it well. Darcy Moore does it well. But back to what I said before, I'm fascinated that even after 20 minutes of just chatting here, that I reckon if you're putting a coach committee together, like you would know what makes, in your history, a successful club.
Well, I reckon I would, but
it's just staggering that you haven't been tapped into. Just sitting here, it's so obvious that you'd be a guy that I'd want on that committee.
Thanks, Scotty. But the one
it's not a coach. When you employ a coach, you're not just asking for a coach. You need
of course you're not.
The board. Like you would have a really good understanding how the board works, the media, the coach, what it needs to be successful.
The relationship.
And I know the people involved.
Absolutely.
Like say if Adam Kingsley's name came up, I said, well, I'll give you a word picture of Adam Kingsley.
Yeah.
And Kingsley's very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, of course he's impressive because we know how well GWS are going, but he's an impressive individual, you know, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Very impressive. that's you remember. I find with people, you remember how they make you feel, right? And Mike, you have this unbelievable ability over your whole life to make people feel when you're talking like this, talking about football. Wonderful, mate. So I've always enjoyed your company. Love to do this all afternoon. Unfortunately, we've got other stuff to do. What are you doing? Playing tennis?
No, I'm not. No, I've actually got a quiet day today.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Read a book? Or?
I've got a big week. I've got some stuff. I'm still doing stuff. I'd be happy doing one engagement a week, but I've got 4 this week.
Well, it's a busy
Finals
schedule.
time.
Yeah, probably, but I don't go looking for it, and I don't do it as a commercial enterprise either.
No.
Although I'm interviewing Eddie on Friday
There you go.
at Montmorency.
Monty Footy Club.
Yeah,
Yeah. That'll be interesting.
it will be.
Too big.
Do we not get a word in?
Too
You know what?
precious.
This is how it'll go, Scotty. Welcome, Ed. How are you? And that'll be
That's
me.
it. And you can sit there and done.
I've enjoyed talking to both of you. I do, and I love talking footy. And I know your show's good. I hear it often enough to know that it's the format that I like.
Thank you.
Well, you're a good man, Mike. And thank you so much for being so generous enough to give up your time. You're a wanted man in Melbourne, and I can't wait to see you at the next pub in Melbourne. You'll be surrounded by 30 blokes again, as you always are. The great Mike Sheahan, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure, boys.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.